What's good, everybody? My name is Machiavelli, and I'm pretty sure at this point you already know about a Drake and Kendrick lawsuit situation going on. It's been going on for a year already, but this last week's been crazy with all the motions filed by Drake's legal team requesting documents against Kendrick Lamar. And to be honest, it's really pathetic, the lengths at which Drake's team is trying to go in order to get something from Kendrick, because at this point it just shows that they have absolutely nothing. And really, nobody's doing more damage to Drake's reputation than Drake himself at this point. And it's really anti-hip-hop. This is not from the culture. This is not something that has happened in the history of the genre. You know, it's always stayed on wax, but because he couldn't win and he's trying to justify, you know, his loss, he just doesn't want to admit that he's a bad writer. You know, so he's just going to these lengths and trying to lawsuit and trying to sue Kendrick Lamar for beating him in a battle, which is absolutely backwards, to be honest. But basically he requested, it was like a 55 or like 75 documents, but the three most important ones were he requested the contract by Kendrick with UMG, so the record deal. Then he requested any documents, you know, showing the relationship between Dave Free and the children of Kendrick Lamar. And then he had requested any documents or footage that proved that Kendrick was a wife beater and that he was hitting Whitney. But none of those three things prove nothing about defamation, bro. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a defamation lawsuit, but none of those three things he requested and the other 50 something more relate to that, you know? And why would UMG hold these pieces of information and not Kendrick, you know? Why would they be involved in something like that? But it's really backwards. I think Drake is absolutely desperate to get what he wants. But yeah, I mean, he's trying to prove every single narrative that he's been saying on his songs and throughout the whole beef. And I think it was last week or something, there was this guy named Kojo. He actually name dropped it in Family Matters. So he said that he was the guy behind the bots, but the bot narrative came after Not Like Us. So why do you mention, you know, Kojo in Family Matters that came before Not Like Us? Why are you saying it there? Are you assuming that Kendrick's music was, you know, botted before, and that's why you're saying it? Or why do you know him? You know, why do you know Kojo? Are you the one using the bots? You're the most streamed artist in the world. You probably know all the players. So why are you mentioning the song, you know? So it just raises a question. And actually he filed a subpoena, which is an order to appear in court, because this guy has been disappeared. They cannot track him down. In my opinion, I believe this guy doesn't exist at all. You know, he's just some, you know, name in there, like Kojo Asamoah, you know. I mean, that name is probably like a foreign name or something, but still, this guy, you know, if he didn't showed up 6 times, and we probably haven't heard of him before, how do you know, file a motion against a very little guy and mess up his whole hustle and expose him, and you don't do nothing against the big corporations? That's just how shows Drake's character. This just shows the type of person he is, willing to step up everybody to get what he wants, which is extremely, you know, it's anti-hip-hop. It's not hip-hop, but it's anti-human, you know. It's no morals. He got no values. He got absolutely nothing against Kendrick. So I think it's messed up. He really has nothing on Kendrick. But the other thing that I wanted to touch on is why would UMG would want to burn him down? You know, why would he go against the CEO, Lucian Grange, and claim that he was involved in all this, and he's requested messages and communication between him and Kendrick's team and the whole UMG team regarding the song? And I'm like, why would they want to burn you? You know, you're their biggest cash cow. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Kendrick is now huge for them now. You know, he has probably the biggest grossing tour in history. You know, his albums are impeccable. He sold more than you last year. He has the fastest, you know, highest streamed song of all time, something like that. And why would they, you know, want to burn another cash cow? It's like that JC lyric. What's better than 1 billionaire? 2. You know, they're a corporation. Their goal is to make money. Why would they burn one of their other income streams if it's bigger or the same as the one they just built? or the one they just acquired. You know, that makes absolutely no sense. And of course, UMG also has a reputation for censoring lyrics. And in any case, if there was a label that would allow or that would actually be conspiring against an artist with somebody else that's in their label, trying to defame him and trying to bring him down, it wouldn't be UMG. Because we all know what happened with Push. You know, I covered it in my other video, and it's been going viral for a while. Pusha T and Malice, you know, the Clipse, they had a song Chains and Whips on their album, and it had a Kendrick Lamar feature. And of course, Pusha T goes back with Drake in 2018, where they had their back and forth, and Pusha T absolutely messed them up. And they saw both of these two rappers together in a song. So they were like, okay, this looks directly, you know, the optics of this is like they're going against Drake. So they told Push and Malice, drop the song all together or drop Kendrick Lamar. But this album is not coming out if this song is in there. So the brothers went over and said, fuck you, UMG, we're going down, we're going to become independent now. And they go out and sign a record deal, distribution deal with Roc Nation. So, you know, he also says about the lyrics committee. You know, there's a lyrics committee in UMG that filters out, you know, every single lyric that might have shots against you know, rappers within their label and trying to defame them down, because if you messed up their reputation, less people listen to him, that means less money, because at the end of the day, it's a business, you know. So it doesn't make any sense at all why they would want to bring Drake down. But I mean, that's the situation we're in. You know, Drake is a very sore loser. He doesn't understand common sense. You know, he's trying to go these lengths, trying to prove his narratives. But the whole point of the lawsuit is, you know, it's a defamation lawsuit. You know, it's not a I'm right lawsuit and Kendrick's wrong lawsuit. No. It's you're saying that UMG and Kendrick are defaming you. So why would you need Kendrick's information about his kids and about his record deal? Why would you need that? That's absolutely unnecessary, because nothing in there will show that he's defaming you. But at this point, he just wants to get everything he can. He can afford the lawyers, so the lawyers are going to go ahead and try to get everything they can to squeeze every penny out of Drake. Because, you know, that's an absolute immaturity, but whatever. And then tying that point in, he has absolutely no ethical or moral character. You know, he is willing to go ahead and involve somebody else's kids that has nothing to do with the battle, that has absolutely nothing to do with his dad's career. They're just kids, bro. You know, and also his wife, Whitney. Why the hell are you bringing her in? And his best friend, manager, you know, Day Free. Why do you bring them in? Why are you bringing somebody else's family, especially with kids and people that have absolutely no, you know, influence or no, you know, influence of what Kendrick did to you? You know, like, you went first at them in your records, you know, and then Kendrick told you, if you're taking it there, I'm taking it further. There's something you don't want to do, and you took it there, and then Kendrick slammed you and you got sore for it, you know what I'm saying, and you couldn't accept it. But, you know, that's happened when you mess up with somebody that could rap, you know what I'm saying. But again, like, if you have no ethical or moral character, you know, an example of that is Drake. You know, you don't bring somebody else's kids into like a lawsuit and ask private information about them, especially when they're like less than 5 years old, bro. Like, you know, this man just doesn't have any common sense. He has a kid of his own, but he seems like he doesn't care at all. But anyways, I believe this overall is a terrible thing for hip hop. Not only because, you know, the face of the genre or like the big artists have a character like this, but what would this mean for future battles? You know, why would a record deal or a record label would want to promote an artist that is dissing somebody else if they already see the ramifications that this brings? You know, we already saw, you know, Kendrick went against Drake. Drake got sore, he got his feelings hurt, and now he's doing a whole drama involving lawyers, which costs a lot of money, which costs a lot of reputation, because they're gonna have to rebuild after this. And, you know, it's just so unnecessary that the gains he made from the music, you lose your time and you lose your money in petty things like this, you know. So why would a record label going forward want to promote or want to sign an artist that it's known or is willing to diss somebody else, knowing the ramifications that could bring, you know? And it is a very big pillar in hip hop. You know, competition has always been at the cornerstone of the culture. Rap battles been a thing since, you know, the 1970s, 1980s. It's all the way up to now, you know, it's always been there. It's kind of lost a little bit, you know, when social media came over. Instead of going on wax, they would go on like IG lives and comments, and that's what Drake's trying to do too. But Kendrick is traditional, he's keeping it on wax, he's keeping it on records, but now that thing is going beyond wax and it's going to the courts, you know, it's going to the lawyers. Now, why would somebody want to go there? It's expensive, you know. So I believe it's destroying, you know, a very, very strong pillar of the culture. It brings people that are not even from the culture to see the drama. But people from the culture enjoy this too because it's sportsmanship. You know, it brings the best out of everybody, you know, involved. But if you're messing in this, you know, you're going to also, you're messing it up for everybody. You know, in my opinion, Drake should just step out of hip hop altogether. He cannot come back rapping and expect the fans to really embrace that. You know, he will still have fans, don't get me wrong. He's bigger than Kendrick right now on Spotify. Kendrick, at the start of the year with the Super Bowl thing, he was above 100 million, but after that craze went down, you know, I think he's right now in like 78 million, and Drake's in like 82 million or something like that. But it is true though, you know, there's always gonna be a audience in there that it's solely focused on, you know, casual music. They don't care about no beef. They don't care about if Drake is hip hop and if he's like traditional, you know, they don't care about the moves he makes. They don't care if he's a lame-o. They don't care if he's sassy or sus or whatever. They just care about having a good time, about being relaxed, about being pacified, while, you know, you have Kendrick Lamar being absolutely electrifying everybody. But they don't care about that. They care about this is the music for them. You know, it's music to pacify people. They're not going to be super fans. They just want something to relax to, and that's completely fine. You know, that's a market for them, and I think Drake should just stick to that. But if you're trying to come back to hip hop and gain the respect of everybody, he's wrong. Like, he really, really won't get anything back. I used to be a big Drake fan myself. I'm not anymore, to be honest. I went to his concert last year when he went with J. Cole. Bro, I put all the merch like on my closet, and it's like in there like somewhere, bro. I don't wear it. I used to wear it a lot before, but now I feel ashamed, you know. I'm too big of a Kendrick fan to support Drake, you know, but I acknowledge that he's going to be big regardless of how many rap beefs he's in, regardless of the lawsuit and how damaged his image is. There will always be a market for that type of music, and Drake is the king of that, and he will probably stay in there forever. You know, probably you won't get hip hop, you won't get the real hip hop fans, you probably won't make rap anymore. You know, that's my advice to him. Is like, if I were Drake, I would probably go do some, you know, Caribbean shit. I would do the things that, you know, tap into other markets, tap into other music, do country. I don't know, bro, do R&B. You good at that, you know, but rap, don't come back with hip hop. You know, that's just my point of view, bro. But yeah, I mean, if he actually gets the documents and he gets access to see Kendrick's files, I think Kendrick should have access to his files too. So what would that case be? You know, all the text messages to them girls are gonna pop out. You know, all the messages to the baby mom of that little girl is gonna pop out. You know, I think Drake should be with his ass tightened up. You know, because what if it backfires at him? What if, you know, Kendrick goes and says, I want to see your files. You know, pull up your phone, pull up this, pull up email, pull up your contracts. Bro, I believe it will be crazy, but I mean, that's just speculation. That will go down for the history of the books, though. There will be movies about that. That will be the biggest humiliation in, like, the entertainment industry, man. But yeah, man, hopefully this gets dropped. I really don't want to see it going forward for, you know, not only for Drake to stop fucking himself up, but for hip-hop in general. You know, just drop it in there, bro. Stop wasting the money. Stop wasting everybody's time. Drop it in there. You know, accept you lost. And don't keep damaging the culture. Don't keep damaging a part of hip-hop that's so important. You know, just drop it all together, bro, and admit that. And then go and do something else that is not in rap. You have been officially segregated from the culture, bro. Don't, you know, my opinion is that he shouldn't come back. But whatever, man. I'll see you guys in the next video. 1.